Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm your host today, Carrie Coogan, and we're pleased to be here with Kansas State Representative Barbara Bollier. Thanks so much for being here today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Carrie.
That's great. And we're here at the Kansas City Public Library Central location downtown, just one of 10 locations in the metro area serving thousands of people in our community. So we're thrilled to be here today.
Good place to be.
That's right. Well, I wanted to talk to you about a few things, actually, starting with the Kansas revenue. I know you've got some pretty strong feelings about this and how it ties into some other problems that might be happening in the state of Kansas. So can you start with the Kansas revenue?
Well, we can actually call it the lack of
revenue. Or Kansas revenue disaster, I think were your words.
Something like that. We passed legislation to essentially try to eliminate income tax in our state, and the results of that have been that we are having very low return revenues for our state, which puts huge pressure on all kinds of things, particularly, well, our biggest budget items are K through 12 education, higher ed, and Medicaid. So those things definitely get impacted, or potentially can, if we don't have the revenues we need.
Right. And so then how does that tie in with taking money from KDOT and then block grants for schools? I mean, is it all connected in your opinion?
Absolutely, it has to be, because everything always goes back to the dollar.
Right.
If we don't have money from our revenue sources, taxes, what has happened in the past and seems to be happening now is that we try to, what I would call, rob some of our solid sources of revenue. That would be like the Kansas Department of Transportation. People call it the Bank of KDOT. There is a great deal of money there, and for instance, the governor recently pulled money from there to help our budget to balance. So when you do that, you don't deal with the whole issue of not bringing in enough revenue, and then you take away from what is needed to be done to maintain our roads, our bridges. You maybe can, yes, we can still continue with some of our new projects, but the actual maintenance and preservation of what we need isn't happening.
So then how do you tie that back to the block grants for schools then?
Well, there was question by our governor that our school funding formula was just too complicated, and many legislators have felt that we've put too much money into education. And if you say that, then you have to look directly at how do we fund schools, and we have funded them in the past through a funding formula, which all states have funding formulas. If you say, okay, well, what our legislature decided was it's not good, we're putting too much money into it, so we're just going to wipe the slate clean, have 2 years, maybe, of having no funding formula, and the charge has been to redo a funding formula. But I have attended multiple events put on by Kansas Association of State School Boards that show really our funding formula isn't bad. It's not that different than most states, but what we are not doing as a state is actually funding the formula. You have thrown into that, getting into the weeds, we have a lawsuit, the the Gannon lawsuit, pending, that potentially will say that we have to put up to $500 million more into school to be constitutionally sound. So yes, revenue will definitely be affected by that.
So these aren't easy problems, and they're not going to be solved overnight. So what are you proposing? What would you like to see happen, if not now, in the next session?
Well, we do have a committee that's been put together to supposedly study the issue of a funding formula. What I would like to see is more people become involved in that process. I think most of us deserve a seat at that table. So
and do you think that's going to happen?
No.
Well, maybe by getting the word out.
I can certainly talk to the people individually, and that I will be and have been doing.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have.
It goes so fast
I know.
every time.
But we really appreciate your time and everything you're doing in the community.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. And that's all the time we have today on Newsmakers, but we'll see you back here next time.